Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we are going to do a standalone today by a new author called Claudia Burgoa. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And the name of the book is called Maybe Later. The book starts off with nothing but emails that are going from the current assistant to the CEO, whose name is Jackson Spearman. That's the CEO. And his assistant's name is Carla. So Carla's pregnant. She's on maternity leave for the next 3 months. And so she's set up for her boss to have a virtual assistant. And so she's detailed to him, listen, this is how this is going to work. They're not going to be in the office. This is strictly virtual. So any appointments, anything like that, they'll handle for you. Anything in the actual office, like getting your coffee, there is someone there that can do that for you. This person is going to handle all the other stuff. She even tells him her due date was the previous day, and she is not putting this off anymore. Like, she's not talking to him for the next 3 months. She's like, you are going to strictly deal with this virtual assistant. If you try to bother me within these 3 months, I'll quit. So then Amy Walker is the name of the virtual assistant. And so she reaches out to him via email, and she's saying how, she's talking a little bit about herself. She has two cats. She likes to do yoga, all these different types of stuff. She sends him a questionnaire for him to fill out so she can find out some things about him. Well, this pissed old boy off, okay? He emailed Carla, why did you get me someone who would send me a questionnaire to fill out? I don't have to do anything like this. And it bounced right back to Amy, the email, because when Carla said she's not answering anything, like she meant it. And so Amy gets the email, and she kind of starts going in on him a little bit. And she's kind of like, maybe you have mommy issues. And he's like, I don't have mommy issues, but clearly you have issues. You know, when you want to do what? Knit? Who knits and is young? You must be old. You must be this and that. I mean, he's just ranting in these emails. It was absolutely hilarious to read. She wasn't saying anything out of the way. But the way she was talking to him, it was pulling information out of him. So during these little rants from him, she finds out he's got two brothers, one younger, one older. He's got a set of twin sisters that are younger. And she found out that he likes outdoor sports. He does a lot of things with his siblings. He loves to travel. She states she doesn't like to travel. She talks about the Titanic and that type of stuff, and like that was a warning. Um, he's telling her she needs to start traveling, X, Y, and Z. And they're just going back and forth. Absolute great read, the back and forth in these emails. I don't think I've ever read a book where it's nothing but emails that you're reading between the two characters. That's it. There's and it was so fun to read. Absolute great read. I would recommend this. We're still doing the emails, okay? They're still going back and forth. He realizes that she just got information out of me without me filling out this damn questionnaire. And he was just kind of like, kudos to you. Like, he had to give it to her because she was able to do it. He winds up going to her superior because he says she's unprofessional and he wants someone else. So the superior, the boss of the company, CEO, is Miss Lancaster, and she replies back that they don't have anyone available to meet his needs. So if he fires Amy, it also stipulates in the contract he's still got to pay for those 3 months because she was designated to work for him. And so, of course, because of that, there's no point. He's not going to pay for something that he's not getting. So, of course he's going to keep Amy. So then she had something sent over via courier, and the courier reported back to him. I think the courier's name was Jared. And he reported back that Jack, the boss, Jackson Spearman, he looked kind of sick. So she was like, she changed the schedule around for him. She made an appointment with the doctor. He, of course, is like, how did you even get my doctor's information? I'm getting my lawyer. I'm going to sue you personally. Like, he's going in on her. And she lets him know, oh, I got the information from Carla because she gave me the name of your doctor and your dentist in case of emergency. And so when my courier, told me how pale you looked, I was like, first of all, I don't want my courier getting sick because if he gets sick, you're going to have to pay his medical bills. And if his family gets sick, you're going to have to take care of that on top. So he, of course, goes to the doctor and he just messages her after, just make sure you fill my prescription. And again, this is so funny because all of this is happening. They're communicating at this point via email. And that's it. It's absolutely hilarious. The name of the company is VAES. That's the name of the virtual assistant company. And they have an actual app. So eventually he winds up downloading the app and then they start messaging through there. So he winds up sending her a game because now he's gotten a little used to her. He sent her a request to pay a couple of games, and you can just kind of see with the interactions that they're having, they're becoming more and more familiar with one another. And it's actually shocking both of them. And so we reach another week, and she, of course, was like, oh, you didn't want to fire me this week. I guess I'm gaining, I guess I'm doing pretty good. And she's been doing super well with scheduling his stuff, moving his schedules around to make his days not be as hectic. Like, she is really good at what she does. And he can't deny that. Like, he just can't. So he's in New York taking care of a business, trying to take care of a business deal. And she's arranged everything for him. He winds up staying a little longer because a blizzard came into town. So um, she's going to get him a larger suite so he can work more for the following few days. So she gives him recommendations of where in New York, where to go. Um, she tells him she's Mountain Time, but she won't tell him exactly where she is. They talk about like relationships and the fact that she doesn't feel like she has to have a man next to her because, you know, some people that's what they dream of. And she's like, if the right one comes along, great. If not, oh well. And he was just kind of like, at the same time, she's telling him, it would be nice for you to share your life with someone. It was just so weird. Again, they've only known each other at this point just a couple weeks that they're messaging. But because they've been so snarky with the stuff that they're saying, they're both learning things about each other. So they're able to have these types of conversations. Again, it's just a great read, but it had me rolling their back and forth with their chats. He's still in New York and he wants to possibly meet with a new lawyer because he feels like the lawyer that he has is dicking him around. And the company that he's trying to acquire, they don't own the patents that are the whole reason that he wanted to even acquire the company. They don't even own them. So she suggests a attorney's office called Everhart and Everhart, and they're going to work on it. And so he winds up unleashing on her in an email saying that, his current lawyer is threatening to sue him, for hiring another attorney and all this type of stuff. And then he yelled at her through this email about forgetting to cancel a breakfast meeting that he had that was supposed to be at the plaza. And he was like, he looked like a complete fool. And then he got a call from his brother from one of his other brothers that his other brother apparently got into an accident in San Francisco. And so he had to fly out there. And in spite of him doing his rant to her and being whatever, she got him out there with no issues. And but she replied to him, first of all, don't you ever speak to me that way again. She's like, I've been nothing but kind to you. I am a very good assistant, and I'm being a decent person to you. She was like, your current lawyer was ripping you off, and she sent the attached document um, showing, that what you need to do is go ahead and make Everhart and Everhart your primary counsel. And so he replied back he was sorry because she had went really quiet on him, and he was like, I apologize, my brother was hurt. His ex wife apparently came around. The family still treats her, well, let me say it correctly, the parents still treat her like she's a part of the family, and she's so fake, and he just had a bunch of stuff going on. And on top of that, he had never even told her about the breakfast at the plaza. And so she let him know in response, I cannot cancel something I don't know anything about, period. So he's apologizing profusely, and she's like, okay, we'll let it go, and leave it at that. But her responses to him, they're a little more colder. They're not as, even though they could be a little spicy, it was kind of something there to her messaging between the two of them. And now she just seems to kind of be like, yeah, okay. And it is bothering him because he did get used to their banter, and now she's starting to be a little different. But you shouldn't have came at her like that. You shouldn't have been a complete and utter jerk. We finally get to a place where Amy's in her home. She's about to start work. She has her two cats, Ramen and Sushi. That's the food she loves. That's what she named her cats. She likes one of them more than the other because Sushi's nicer to her than Ramen is. Um, Via email, he had sent her a thank you for the fact that she was able to secure that new law firm. They really helped him out. They have some more pleasant exchanges. He's out visiting his brother. She made an appointment for him to see like a really great specialist, the brother. Um, and they kind of have their back and forth with that. And then it is a little bit less icy now between the two of them than it had been in their previous interactions. And honestly, both of them are kind of happy about that because they really didn't like being like coldish with each other. So then Amy gets a call from Everhart, and the reason she was able to connect Jackson Spearman with the Everhart law firm is because she's a virtual assistant for Everhart as well. She has been for a really long time. So he actually calls her, and he wants her to set up a dinner for some woman, and she's like, okay, I'll do whatever. And he of course asks her, how's her day going, things like that. And something happened with her, but we don't fully know what has happened, because him asking her, he's kind of like, oh, did you get out today? Almost like she's reclusive a little bit. So I'm like, okay, something's going on. I want to know the story. Like I want to know the mystery now. She does tell him she's gonna go to a bookstore. So she is planning to get out. But she has a lot of work to do as well. So we find out she's got a few clients. So she works a lot, and that keeps her really busy. So she messages her friend Laura. That's one of her best friends. Laura just had a baby about 3 months ago, and the baby's name is Simone. Laura is married to Alistair, who is, or shall we say, um, Amy's been friends with since, I don't know, when she was a young kid. And when she went off to college, she was actually the one that introduced Alistair to Laura. And so they're like all best friends, all three of them. And so Laura, of course, they do a Skype, and Laura was, wondering when she would come and visit because they live in Boston. We don't know where Amy lives just yet, um, but we at least know where the friend lives. They would like for her to come and visit, and she's like, "Well, I'm not saying no," and Laura's like, "But you're not saying yes either." So they were like, you need to make a new friend this year. Like, this was supposed to be one of her goals. Laura also was like, "Are you still seeing your therapist?" She's like, "Yes, I Skype with her once a week." She's like, "Okay, just kind of checking on you and stuff like that." So she's going to get ready for the rest of her day. Again, I want to know what's happened to her because clearly something went down. Um, After the Skype, she got an email um, from Alistair saying, "You are such a wonderful person. I wish we could get that old person back, and you would stop closing yourself off." You know, and she thought, "Wow, like how sweet of him to send that to her." But he's a friend, and I think when someone's your friend, and even if something has occurred, you of course would like for them to get to a better space mentally, physically. Of course you would want that. So he, to me, I'm like, he's just clearly a really good friend. Amy goes to the bookstore. She's looking at new romance novels. She loves Fitzgerald, not the Gatsby book. She's not that big of a fan of that one. She has other ones that she likes. And the book she's picked up looks like a first edition. She almost falls and lands on this tall, dark, and handsome man. And so they have a little conversation about books. It's so super cute. The girl yells out her name, but she says Emily. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I thought her name was Amy. So I'm going, okay, what is happening? Right? Because the book said her name was Amy. Well, we find out that her real name is Emmeline. Which isn't cute, by the way. I'm sorry. I know that's probably really judgy, but anyway, it is not cute. But anyway, I digress. So the guy winds up asking her um, out for coffee and asks for her number and all this type of stuff. And in her head, she's going abort, abort. But the other part of her wants to go ahead and she wants to do this. So she gives her number. And then after she gives her number, in her head, she's thinking like, maybe I should just call my, cell phone carrier and change my number. But again, these are just thoughts rambling around in her head. So she asks the guy, like, "Is this a date?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's a date, you know? So they're going to meet for coffee. So she messages her friend Laura and says, "Well, it looks like I got a date." So, of course, Laura's happy for her. But I was kind of thrown because I was like, wait a minute. This book said her name was Amy. So I went back and read, and sure enough, it said her name was Amy. So now I'm like, what is really happening? And then, of course, the name of the guy that she meets, his name is Jack. We then switch to Jack's POV, and Jack is Jackson. So this is Jackson Spearman. So he's messaging Amy, and they're just kind of catching up on different stuff. It's late at night, and she was catching up on work, and he actually was trying to poach her. He's kind of like, "Is there any way you would consider coming and working for me exclusively?" And she's like, "You just got to get in line. You're not the only one that wants me exclusively." So she's been an assistant for 8 years, but has been with VAS for the past 4 years. And she's like, she's not leaving. Like, she's the only person that doesn't have this non compete clause in her contract. So she could leave. She just doesn't want to. She enjoys what she does. So then he decides to tell her that he had met a woman, and she was like, "Oh, wow, do you need me to set up a reservation for you?" And he's like, "No, no, 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 I don't want to come off too strong." He's like, "I'm not even sure if I'm going to do it, you know, X, Y, and Z." So he has some trust issues. And so I'm like, okay, we need to now find out where his issues, like what happened to make him be that way. And we need to know why the hell it's saying her name's Amy, but then she's saying her name is Emmeline. Yeah, we got to figure some stuff out. So he tells her that, his brother is doing better, and they wind up streaming Clueless together. They talk about some other shows like Friends. He's never watched it. Just a little conversation or whatever. And then, what does he say? No, Amy says, well, if it doesn't work out, we'll just stream another movie. And that was it. So cute, though. We are still in Jack's POV. He gets a call from his brother. He needs a scooter. I guess the other brother had broke his foot one time, and so he's asking if um, Jack can like get it shipped to him. So he's like, "All right, I'll have it done." So he also tells his brother Jason, is like, he has a partnership contract with his girlfriend. So he didn't want to get married. He apparently saw what old boy Jackson went through, and he didn't want to get married. However, and I'm like, oh, we're learning something. So Jackson's been married before. So he did, however, sign this partnership contract. So apparently he does like extreme sports, okay? That's his career. And so the doctor told him after this accident, he will never be able to perform at that same level. And so the woman, her name is Sam, she wants out. So I'm like, oh wow. Look at them dropping. This was fun. It's like they're dropping us little hints about different things. I was like, I like that. Kind of the same way uh, Amy was able to pull things from him. It's like we're getting the information that same way as we read along in the book. I think that's really cool. So with the brother talking about him, being railroaded in his divorce, it kind of makes him want to back out of the coffee date. And his brother Jason is like, no, you need to go. It's not like you're getting married. It's just a coffee date. So he calls Emmeline. He is, oh God, I do not like that name. He's leaving a message, um, but she winds up picking up and he's able to talk to her. And they are going to meet the next day for coffee. And it's crazy because he's messaging Emmeline, and he's also messaging Amy because he's having her schedule the delivery of the scooter to the brother Jason. So it needs to get overnighted and all this type of stuff. Again, really great read. I'm probably going to keep saying that throughout this video because it's just so cool how these conversations are happening, and he's having the conversation with the same person. We know Amy is Emmeline, but we don't know why the hell she's using the name Amy. We then switch back to who we now know is Emmeline. I'm not going to call her that because I like M. We'll just call her M because I just don't like Emmeline. It's just not cute. So we get a little bit more detail about her childhood. Her parents only expected the absolute best from her. They tried to put her in everything, and she had to be at the top of everything. She has a sister named Amy, and I'm like, oh, so that's her sister's the whole Amy name come from. The sister, when they were younger, would rat her out, because as M started to feel like, you know what, I'm sick of this, I'm tired of this whole, having to be the best at everything, started kind of craving that individuality, she started sneaking out, doing stuff. And Amy would tell on her parents' good graces. And so that became this conflict with the sister. Every time the sister had some on her, she's going to tell it. So the parents were older when they had these kids. So I think she said her mother was when she had her. So she was a little older, and the dad was like 50 something years old when she was born. So they're a little older, and because they went to bed so early, she was able to sneak out a lot. I said that's a shame. But you got to think if she's a teenager, by that time they're closer to 60, you know? Yeah. They're going to bed. So, safe to say, the relationship she had with her parents, it was nothing of a loving type of a relationship. It was just try and be perfect, and they might notice you. So, she arrives to, actually, she's going back and forth about if she's going to do this coffee shop date. And she just feels like, people can be so disappointing, and she doesn't know if she really wants to go through. So she's chatting with Jackson. He, of course, is asking her, like, what does she have planned for the weekend? She always diverts questions away from her whenever he tries to ask things about herself. And he's like, you're always trying to get me to open up, but you don't want to do the same thing. And she says, well, I have an appointment with my therapist. I tell them all my problems. I don't need to tell anybody else. So we find out the reason that she likes her job is because with her clients, when she exceeds expectation, they're beyond grateful for it. So being that she grew up where she never got that, it means even much more to someone like her. It's like this thrill she gets because of how she grew up. That's sad. But see how people can fuck their kids up? See? It's time for the date. She, of course, is super nervous. She's messaging Laura, trying to help her get her fit together. Um, they get to the cafe, and the waitress they had, she was like a real bitch. Like, she was very much ignoring M and was all about Jack. She's like, what do you want? Is there anything else I can get you? Like, she was actually rude to M. Like, M ordered a pastry, and she was like, oh, we have salads too. I was like, damn, what a bitch. But Jack didn't pay her any attention. He was all about M, and that's it. So that made her really happy. They had really good conversation. Even wound up doing a scenario because he had this whole dates to sex ratio. So his thing was if they have 18 great dates out of 20, then they have to have at least 18, sex dates. And so, we'll just call them fuck sessions. And so she was like, okay, so what were the two fights about? Those two bad dates, what were they about? So they even get into character, and they're like, well, you wanted to go visit your friends in Boston, and he wanted her to meet his family, and she's like, why would I want to meet your family? We haven't even slept together yet. This whole debacle, they're fully into character, and he says he would have gone to his parents, she would have went to Boston, he would have felt like an asshole for being mean to her, so he would have flown to Boston to come and see her, and it would have made her so happy. So even though it was a fake scenario, she absolutely loved the idea that someone was willing to put her ahead of something else. Like, it was so sweet. But I'm like, they crazy, but it was cute. So he's supposed to call her on Tuesday so they can figure out like a dinner date. We get a little bit more information. She owns the VAES, the virtual company. It's hers. So when he asked her what she did, she just said, oh, I do a lot of things. I juggle a lot of hats. But she didn't want to tell him that she owned her own business because a lot of times when she tells people, or shall we say when she tells guys, that she owns a successful business, they tend to act kind of weird. And so that's why she kind of kept it to herself. But then it also makes sense of why she got that email that he sent out first to Carla, but also he had like sent an email to complain about her to her boss, E. Lancaster. So it came to her. Like, I'm like, oh, it's starting to really piece itself together. We still just don't know why she uses the name Amy. Like, I don't know if it could be just a protection, you know, for online. She prefers to use, an alias. Maybe that's it. That's the part we're missing, that part. They have another email exchange that Monday morning. She's up really early. Well, she had been up really early. She had been up since 4 because she had a client that had a meeting in Japan. She had to translate. She apparently speaks 3 or 4 languages. He, of course, is even more impressed. He's like, "Are you sure I can't hire you?" She's like, "Nope." So they kind of have this little fun conversation about her saying, what did she say? Something about him hiding as well because he's nowhere on the internet. And in the contract, she's not supposed to like look up her clients and stuff like that. I think that's a part of his contract. He has no internet presence. Um, he says, yeah, he has no cyberprint. He's like, you won't find a picture of me anywhere. She's like, well, I might need that information from whoever did that for you from my clients. He says, well, if they ever ask for it, then I'll probably give it to you. But for now, I'm keeping that information to myself. So then he asked her if she had any good dinner ideas for in Denver, which is where he lives, and clearly she does too. She, of course, says, I'll throw you some names. So then we switch back to Jack's POV. He's driving her to Aspen to have their date. So they live in Denver. They weren't able to go to lunch or dinner earlier in the week because she was really busy and he was really busy. So they made it for this Saturday. So while they're in the car, he asks her again, like, what she does. And she does say, I own a company. She's like, but it's really complicated what I do. And he's like, oh, okay. And then he says he works in programming. But the truth is, he's the owner, he's the CEO of the company. But you got to remember, she just knows his name is Jack. So he's not saying who he is. It's so crazy. They both don't know who the other person is. And they're both trying to be protective of who they really are. So he talks a little bit about his family. He talks to his parents often. So they have a pretty good relationship. And she kind of tells him, when he asks about her family, he's like, maybe one day I'll tell you about my mess. In Jack's head, he's kind of like, this is probably going to be good for some dates, maybe some good sex. He really can't see himself falling again for someone. He's he he's been married. He doesn't really see himself going deep with someone again. And then on her end, she's never fully allowed herself to fall. I'm like, good grief. But at the same time, those are all recipes for both of y'all asses falling for each other. So he takes her to Aspen to go skiing, but she doesn't ski. So he sent a message to Amy to get some suggestions, but Amy had an automated message saying not available. I really thought someone was going to figure it out at this point. I really did. Um, she did ask him if he'd ever been in love with like this sick intensity that it made you go crazy. And honestly, he was like, he never felt that way. Even though he'd been married, he had never felt that intensely about his wife. And of course, the love she's talking about is that of what she's read in books. So then we switch to M's POV, and they wind up sharing a very passionate kiss while they're on the way to this antique shop. Talk a little bit more about their family. She says her grandmother was a translator, traveled all over the world, translating for dignitaries, and she always wanted to do that. But something happened, and she stopped seeing her grandmother years ago. He tells her like one set of his grandparents died in a car accident, and the other ones they're cool. So they agree, they like each other, but they don't want to put like any unnecessary pressure on this. Or shall I say Amy, she gets a message from Jackson saying how much he appreciates all of her hard work the previous week. This, of course, shocks her, and she's like, "Are you okay?" Well, this is coming from the conversation he had with M, where she was saying how she had done so much for her boss the previous week. And he, of course, was like, "Well, did he ever thank you?" And she's like, "No, but it's okay. He appreciated it, X, Y, and Z." So then he, in turn, comes back to Amy. This is so crazy, to tell her how much he appreciates what she does. But again, this is shit you ought to be doing for people anyway, you know? But anyway, I digress. But it made him so upset that M didn't get that, recognition, that praise from her boss. So it was like he wanted to make sure he wasn't that type of person, even though he doesn't know, like, this is Amy. M talks to Laura, and she's basically telling her all about Jack and how she thinks he's too good to be true. She's like, how can this 34-year-old man be single? He's got to be some type of player. He's got to be married. I got to be like just his weekend mistress. Um, she has this thought because a lot of her clients do have side pieces. Like they'll tell their wife they're going to London for business, but they're really in Bora Bora with the mistress. So what she does is she'll send the corporate bill with all the charges to the home address, and that's how they'll get caught. She's like, she doesn't like the fact that she's like aiding in that bullshit, so that's what she does. We find out, we get some more backdrop, and we find out her sister Amy is dead, and she blames herself for it. That's all the details we get. Lord tells her she needs to remain open. We switch to Jack's POV. He's out with his brother Jason. And Jason wants to go to the mall. They do some shopping. And then Jason turns around, starts yelling out some inappropriate bullshit to a woman. The woman turns around. It's M. She goes off on him, letting him know, like, you don't speak to a woman like that, X, Y, and Z. And of course, Jackson's like, well, Jack, because I gotta keep him in character, you know? So Jack is like, oh my gosh, M, you know? So then they talk. The brother, of course, is all apologetic and stuff. But she's like, whatever, you know? So the brother leaves and they talk, and the next date she was supposed to plan, but she hasn't planned it yet. She's in her yoga pants, and she says, well, she does yoga on Sundays, like he should join her. It's free. They have from, starters to, experts. You should come, you should do it. When he asks her, like, okay, what would you like, what's a perfect date for you? She says a bookstore and sushi, because those are the things that she loves. They give her great joy. So he asked her if she liked music. She said she does. And that made him think of Amy, because Amy sends him playlists. And so someone's going to be at the Fillmore. And he asked her again, like, about, how did she put it? I think he was trying to find out some more information about what she did, because she has a personal phone and she has a business phone. And so someone was calling the business line, and he, of course, clocked that as, okay, but she's still not telling me what she does. She's keeping secrets. She's not giving me information like I would want. And I'm like, all of this shit is going to wear thin pretty soon. I feel like probably on both sides. Because both of y'all aren't telling everything. They take separate cars because, clearly they came there separately. She was going to stop by her place, feed her cats. The conversation morphs into something about marriage and children. She says how her friends, they just had a kid and this type of stuff. But she feels awkward around kids and all this type of stuff. She hasn't really been around too many. And how, her friends are in Boston and they would like for her to come and visit. And he, of course, is like, you should go. She's like, I know, eventually I will, whatever. So then he's thinking she, like, doesn't want children. Well, apparently that was a contention in his marriage. his wife Vivian hated kids, and didn't want him, and had planned on telling him that she didn't want him. So piece by piece, we're starting to get more and more information of how these people became who they are, you know? And I think that's so cute. But it's also nerve wracking because I want to know now. So they kiss, and she says something to him embarrassing. I forget what she said. It was something embarrassing. And she's like, "You probably want to get away from me now." He's like, "Nope, not even close. It's going to take a lot more than that." Jack winds up emailing Amy, and she's pretty much, she sent him a playlist, but it was the wrong one. And he goes, "Do you send all of your clients playlists?" And she says, "No, not all of them, you know." And so they're doing their back and forth. He winds up calling M, telling her he was going to start, um, he was starting to have like phone sex with her, and like asking her like what she was wearing and all this type of shit. And she's like, "It's 3 o'clock. Okay, I am so busy. Like, I can't do this right now." So they made plans to like pick it back up at 7:30 that evening. So Jack winds up talking with Amy. They do some messaging, and he of course tries to fish again to see if she's married, got a girlfriend, boyfriend, something. And she of course doesn't budge. She's being funny, very evasive. She's all like, "Maybe I do have a boyfriend and a girlfriend. I am a lot." And he's just kind of like, "But for the right person, you'll be worth getting to know." So after that conversation, Emma goes and messages Jack that she can't do today. And so he calls her. He's like, "Why?" We're like, "What's going on?" She's like, "I'm a lot. And eventually it's going to get to be too much for you, X, Y, and Z." He says, "I really like you. We get along really well. I would like to see where this goes. Like, please. I have something nice for us to do. Like, please." And so she agrees, and they go to dinner. And after, they're going to go see an indie band. And so as they're talking, she says the name between her two hardest clients, Everhart and Spearman. And he perks up at his last name. Now, they have not exchanged last names. So again, she knows him as Jack. He knows her as M. But they don't know any last names. But he had seen a picture of Amy, I think a picture some kind of way. He had saw this photo. She had this tattoo on her foot. Amy did. And when he looks down at M's feet, he realizes this is Amy. After she said these names, she's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I just broke a confidentiality agreement. I was never supposed to mention their name." So even though she never gave any information, giving their name is still a violation of the contract. So it's like a super strict confidentiality agreement that they have. Like, she can't even mention the names. So she starts to have a whole ass meltdown. She's freaking out. And she's like, "I have my business. I can't make these type of stupid mistakes." She's like, "That's why I wanted to cancel this, because I knew something was gonna happen, and I was gonna make a mistake." And as he's watching her, it's like he was upset at first, and now it's heartbreaking watching her melt down. Like, this seems like an actual person, I'm sorry, like fucking losing it. And he's trying to figure out, is this a game? Like, what is really happening? But the way she's acting, this seems like a legit breakdown. And so she put money on the table, and she's like, she had made a comment earlier. No, I'm sorry. He had made a comment earlier, um, saying that, he's like, "Well, you said you talked to someone earlier, and they had said you were a handful." And he said, "Is that why you canceled with me?" And she said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, why did you agree to come out with me?" And she says, "I looked at one of the quotes on my wall, and it said to conquer your fears." She's like, "But clearly I got it wrong." And she's like, she's going to leave. So that's when she puts the money on the table. And after she left, he gets a message from Amy saying, I fucked up. I mentioned your last name to someone. I didn't reveal any information, but I did say your last name. And it's also said, my boss, M is M Lancaster, or Emma Lancaster, however she puts it on there. Um, Says that, if you want to get out of the contract, you can. There won't be a fee. We won't charge you anything. If you want to pursue legal action, we understand. So then you get some messages from the law firm Everhart, and the attorney basically saying, listen, Amy told me what happened. She's really upset. There's no grounds for you to sue or anything like that. It just sounds like the assistant just made a mistake and she feels really bad. And he realizes, you know, this could still be some type of ploy, but it doesn't feel like it. He's trying to piece together, like, what the fuck is happening? Because here's the thing, for her to freak out like that, it could have been a great, you know, scene, okay? But the fact that she messaged to him right after as Amy, she clearly doesn't know who the fuck he is. So he winds up getting up to go after her, but she's getting in a car and pulling off. Our boy Jack winds up going to her apartment. He gets there, he beats her there before the Uber gets her there. And before she gets there, they're messaging, she's apologizing and stuff like that. And she was saying, because she's messaging him as Amy, right? And she's saying how, she's so glad that he trusts her and all this type of stuff. And he's just getting more and more confused because, again, this does not sound like someone that's trying to, like, perform some type of trickery, you know? And so she gets there and they go up to her place and she's like, it's not going to work. And he's honest about his first marriage. He told her he got married when he was 25. And from the get-go, his wife was scamming him. She stole money from him. She marked him up on his neck. He still has the gash there because when they divorced, she didn't get any money from him and she had to pay back what she stole. So, of course, Emmeline is like, well, you've got issues. Seems like you're trying to work through them. And she's saying stuff like, maybe um, she'll just try dating later. Like, she'll try Tinder again or something like that. And she's like, clear, a passionate soulmate, that type of shit, you know, maybe I won't have it. And so he realizes in that moment, like, he doesn't give a fuck what her name is. He just wants her. He goes in for the kiss. But this is my thing. This is where you could have flat out fucking asked her to find out what's going on. Because you're not telling her, you're now kind of duping her, right? Because she doesn't appear to she's not trying to trick you. That's not what's happening. But we also don't know why she uses this alias online. We don't know why she does that. Again, it could be to keep a separation, of church and state, okay? She might just want to have a certain a name at work that stays there, and then my real personality, Emma Line, M, you know, that's separate. And that could be why she does it. But nothing she's saying or doing seems like she's trying to do anything malicious. And so this is where I feel like he should have said something to her and not, well, I don't care anymore. Well, it doesn't matter if you don't care anymore. You now know something that you can now use to your advantage. And that's where, to me, I feel like it's going to get fucking tricky. She pulls back from the kiss. She's like, this is not going to change anything. She's like, he's telling her, we had a fight, an argument, a disagreement. You don't just throw everything away because of that. And she goes in and she starts talking about, how do I say it? He started asking questions like, are you a psychiatrist? Are you a life coach? Like, a stripper? He starts asking all these questions. She says, well, at one point I was. So she got hired as a stripper, but she never swung on that pole. So she found like they basically wanted her to do a lot more shit than just swinging on the pole. They wanted her, you had to fuck. So she wasn't going to do that. So she left that alone. Well, she found a job as an assistant. They needed multiple assistants, but she was like, if you let me organize this, I can do it myself. And that's how she started growing her clients. Her parents cut her off because she had switched schools. Um, that's where she met Alistair and Laura. They all lived in the same apartment. Well, no, she didn't meet Alistair there because she knew Alistair from a jit, so she'd already known Alistair. But she paid for her MBA because she wanted to know how to run a good business. And so she's been doing great ever since. So she says the name VAES, and she said that to him. And what did he say? He made a comment about um, hiring or something like that. And he says no. He's like, I've got the best assistant in the world. And she says her older clients know who she is. Um, but she has found a new bond with a new one. But, that's her little secret. And so he's back to being mindful. Again, it doesn't appear as if she knows who you truly are. So there's no malintent on her part. There really isn't. So it's just a lot for him because he's trying to put together like this is the same person that kind of somewhat opens up to him a little bit more via Amy than he can get via M, right? So and I was just like, that's when he just said, listen, are you Amy? Are you Emmeline? Are you Amy? Like, what the fuck going on? He should have just asked her, but he didn't. So we switch back to Emily, and the girl is having a whole ass sex dream. She wakes up. Um, it's a whole thing. Girls getting fucked by, but it's Jackson is the name that she says when she wakes up. And she's like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? She takes a shower. She doesn't have any messages from Jackson Spearman, and she doesn't know what's going to happen with that. She felt like it wasn't the right time for her and Jack to do it, that they needed to hold off until they were both ready and not just because they were all amped up after this argument. We switch back to Jack's POV. They're having this really long email back and forth. Jack and Amy, and actually they're chats. I'm sorry, they're in that app, so they're doing the chats back and forth. He's trying to pull some kind of way for her to admit that she's using like a fake name, and he wants to know would she ever do that and for what reason. And she says she would use one to protect herself, and she would use someone she knows. And he's like, well, who would that be? And she says her twin sister. I'm just like, oh my gosh, we're getting more pieces. So she's got a twin sister. Well, he's still trying to get more information about the sister, but she stops talking. And so he clearly knows she's not playing a game, that she doesn't know he's Jackson Spearman. Um, she has not put Jack and Jackson together. But he's decided he's going to keep this going, and I'm like, this is going to blow up. Like, oh my gosh. So a week or so has passed. He hasn't reached out to M. Jack hasn't. And when he did start calling, she kept sending him the voicemail. So then he kept trying to figure out like what to say on the voicemails. It was just a lot of back and forth. Eventually he told her about some Smashing Pumpkin tickets and that they were playing that later that week, and she's like, I mean, I already have my tickets, but you can show up if you want. He kept asking to pick her up. She kept saying no. So she is thinking about this conversation she had with Jackson where he was like, well, you don't even know his last name. He could be a serial killer, right? So uh, they wind up messaging, and she reached out to him because her cat got attacked and she was at the vet. And she was like really upset 'cause she loves her cats. So apparently she had put him in a kennel, and a German Shepherd got loose and it attacked the cat. So she's getting a bunch of stitches. She's really worried about her cat. She has the other cat with her, Sushi. And then he comes to where she is, and he's like, of course, tell me what you need. I'll do it. So the vet comes out, tells her about her cat, says, they can come back after 7 to pick it up. And she's just kind of, at that point, it was 1 o'clock in the morning. And he says, we'll just go back to your place and we'll get sushi comfortable. And then we'll come back to pick up ramen. And he was just really sweet to her. And he did say to her, can we try again and stuff like that. And she was like, yeah, let's do the whole slow thing. And they didn't have sex or anything like that because, again, they're trying to take it slow. And it's just a lot is going on, a lot of stuff to process. And that's what he told her, that he had reached out because he just had a lot of stuff to process, a lot of stuff going on. That's all it was. He takes off a few days to help her with the cat. So then, of course, there's a message sent to Amy saying that he's taking off some time. And he's also fishing to see if Amy has a date coming up, how she feels about this person she's dating. And this is, again, where I'm like, this is what's fucked up, because you're using this to your advantage to find out things, and I don't like that, right? You don't want to ask her flat out, okay, what's going on? So now you've decided, even though you recognize that she's not doing anything with any type of malintent, but yet you want to use this as a way to try and figure out how she really feels about you and all this type of stuff. And that's where I'm like, this is where it gets, where I'm like, you're wrong. This is not okay, because she might feel kind of, she's letting her guard down more with one person, this other person, Jackson, that she thinks is another person. And you're exploiting that because you don't have the balls to just flat out ask her. And so I do think that's fucked up. We all have, depending on what a person shows you, that's what's gonna, decide your comfort level with them. So there's a comfort level with Jackson for a few reasons, because let's be honest, she never talks to him on the phone. Everything is like virtual. So there's this freedom to communicate about things that maybe I'm not going to say to someone who's in my face, right? And that's what's happening. And it's like, you're kind of exploiting that now, because you can't figure out where her head is. So you're using another method to try and find out. And I just think it's a little shitty. He's chatting with Amy about the whole sex thing. Basically, Amy's saying, if y'all can't even have a conversation about it, then neither one of you are ready for it. That's just what it is. So he winds up getting all worked up, and having this intense jack off session. I don't know how I said that. Um, all the crap he wants to do to her. I'm like, this is just such a mess. So now Jack is having a problem of not remembering who said what to him. So he winds up asking Amy if she has a sister. And wait a minute, or did he ask M that? I think he asked M that question. And that conversation was done with Amy, but now he's asking M. And again, because you're up here trying to juggle between the two, and now you don't know who asks, who you ask what to. It's hilarious. So they do talk about her sister. She starts talking about her friends Alistair. She hasn't been able to find him anything because he got laid off. Something happened with the company he was working for. Now Alistair does help her because he helps run her servers for her business, and a lot of the companies that he's been putting in applications for, like, they want him to work on a trial basis of like 3 months before they're willing to give him a permanent position. And they can't really afford to just relocate. So she's been giving them jobs as, putting off work on them as assistants, but that's not going to be enough to sustain them. So she's been trying to find something for them. She's got a lot of contacts, so she's been sending out different emails. And so Jack, of course, tells her, you can email me. And so he tells her it's going to be jack23 at mail.com. It's from his middle school days, that email address. He's like, send it to me. I'll see what I can do. But again, see what I mean? Like, you playing, because she had told Jackson about the situation, and Jackson had said forward over his, application, his resume to me. Now he's gonna get it easily. He can make it happen on his end, so he'll look like the hero. You know what I mean? Like, you playing with people real livelihoods for your own gain. And that's fucked up when you know how much her family, they are her family. You know what I mean? They're her best friends and they're her family. And you're playing with that shit. And that's when that's where I'm like, this is a little fucked up. He's decided that the contract ends in 12 days. And so that's when he'll say something to her. So he's just trying to keep this all juggling until the 12 days are up. So Amy and Jackson are having a conversation, messaging, and she's saying how, she's been invited to go to a cabin in Steamboat, Colorado, and, she's nervous about it. Jackson, of course, is saying, well, you should be nervous. Like, you know, no, why are you nervous, is what Jackson says. I'm sorry. And he's like, what's the issue? So he's like encouraging her to go, but she's come to the conclusion that she's going to break up with Jack. And she feels the mere fact that someone else is occupying her mind means that there's something wrong. And so he reaches out to his brother Alex, because Alex does the whole relationship thing more so, of course, than Jason. And he's like, you need to just tell her the next time what's up. He's like, next time you find someone you like, just fuck them, and just, that's it. Like, cause you suck at relationships. So now Jack is all worried because now he knows she's gonna dump him. And he's trying to think of a way, like, okay, should he come clean? Like, what should he do? Well, he gets a message from her. She's been in an accident. She's at the hospital. She's like, I need you to come bail me out. They won't let me leave. So he goes. We find out that she was downtown and a scooter ran her over. And all she remembers is someone over her, an ambulance, people asking her questions. Her arm is in a cast. It's going to be there for about 6 weeks. Um, he has to keep checking in with her because she had a concussion, and he's got to make sure it doesn't progress. He picks up her medication, all this type of stuff. He messages Jason and he's like, hey, can I bring her back to your place because it's bigger than hers? And he's like, no, I need my place, like, I have plans, just take her back to yours. He's like, well, that's the problem, she knows my address. He's like, well, you need to figure it out. So then through M's phone, he does text her courier, he's a friend too, Jared, and let him know, can you watch her cats for her, and tells him what happened. And he's like, sure, no problem, I'll go, and I'll go to her place and I'll do that. No problem at all. But again, she's a little loopy, so I'm like, she's not gonna really know where the hell she at because she's concussed. We switch back to M's POV. She's groggy. She hears Jack saying, wake up, and she almost feel like she can't. And then he's telling her, like, you're scaring me, baby. You need to wake up. I need you to wake up. So she opens her eyes. He asks her some questions, like, who are you? When's your birthday? All this type of stuff. And she mentioned some things as she was going in and out. So the reason she tried to get out of the hospital so fast is because it brought back memories of when her sister died. So her sister was her twin, which we learned earlier, and she had a fiance. He was a pilot. Well, he had a pilot's license. There was a crash. He survived, and unfortunately she didn't. So she's saying all of this stuff. She's not fully conscious. She's going in and out. And so from the very beginning, this is when she was saying, like, she doesn't travel, this and that. That was her sister's personality. So her sister's real name is Amelia. And her sister had a lot of phobias, especially towards the end of her life. So her parents, well, how do I say this? Amelia thought that the parents loved Emmeline more than her. Because Emmeline at one point was always the top at everything, right? But she knew that was the only way to get her parents' attention. But all Amelia saw was the parents give her more attention than me. So it became this contention between the two of them, but it wasn't on M's part, just Amelia's, unfortunately, which is sad. So basically, what happened is that's why her sister, of course, was so willing to tell on her. Because, again, like we said earlier, she wanted to get that favor with the parents. Like, I'm trying to be seen in your eyes as well. So if it means I got to rat my sister out and fuck up that bond, I'll do it because I need my parents' approval. That is so sad. Again, people can really fuck their children up. M wakes up and she takes a shower. It's a little difficult because she has the cast. Comes downstairs. She's like, oh my gosh, you have like a massive place. Like your bedroom is bigger than my whole apartment. She reveals some more information, um, saying that, she grew up in a place like this with her parents. And she used to intern at they had a really large thriving law practice, and she used to intern there, and there was a guy there named Mark. He came from the right family, and her parents wanted to be married into that family. So she was supposed to be with the guy, but she got tired of the facade. She got tired of it. And so when she decided to like change her life, her sister Amelia wanted her life and was like, fine, like, you know, I'll marry him. She wanted the guy. So the parents, of course, are thrilled with her now. And the guy, on the night that the accident happened, he was drunk. It was windy. So a bunch of factors that all, a bunch of ingredients that say disaster. And that's how that plane crash happened. And thus the reason why she takes the name Amy Walker, because if her sister had married the guy, her name would have been Amelia Walker. And she feels she's the reason why her sister's gone, because she didn't stay with that guy and she didn't marry him. So again, I don't I don't know. I mean, I feel bad for, I mean, the girl gone, I guess, at this point, but I can see how she can feel that way, but at the same time, you don't know who the sister was going to wind up with anyway. Like, if she based upon her happiness, if her parents were going to like her decision, there's no telling who she would have married. You know what I mean? There's no way to say what could have happened, but unfortunately that's a lot easier said than done, and she's been burdened with that guilt all this time. And she's kind of telling him like he's this perfect guy, and he puts her in the mind of the Mark guy, because that's who he was. He looked perfect, he was great, and yet that's not who he was. He was this whole other person. And that's why she feels like he's too good to be true. And she tells him she's going to be leaving for Boston for a little bit, visit her friends and stuff like that. But basically, this is going to end. And he kind of says to her, like, I didn't know me being kind and all these different things was like this bad thing. Like, that's what people do when they love you. And he walks off. Jackson goes to visit his assistant, Carla. She was actually scheduled to come back the next day. And he finds out that VAES already set her up with like this really great daycare that she's been taking her daughter to like 2 hours a day for like the past week to kind of get her used to another environment. And he brought a packet from HR, but it was for her to kind of fill out what type of an assistant she would need for herself. She thought that he was trying to get her to hire her replacement. He's like, no, 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 no. we're expanding. Like Jason's come on board and we're going to need more help. And so this is to help you out. So this, of course, seems very unlikely to her. Seems weird. She's just kind of like, I'm going to need a contract saying that. Like, that you're not trying to get rid of me. So he tells her, take the next day off. I will see you on Monday. She's like, okay, all right. And so she, of course, asked him, like, what happened to you? And he says, Emmeline Lancaster. So then he's chatting with Amy. She's in Boston. She says she's helping a friend pack. And I'm like, they must have found a job or something. But she brings up about her sister again. And that, what did she say? He said, I thought you were an only child. And she said, no, I had a sister, but she died. And she said something about she wished it was her, just a lot of crap. And so she confides that she knows it's over with the other guy. He was just too perfect. He never talked about his life. He never let it get too real. He wouldn't talk fully about his family and stuff like that. But I'm just kind of like, you weren't telling everything either. Like, some stuff came out, a lot of stuff, shall we say, came out when she had that concussion, but you were being evasive as well. So I don't really like the fact that you want to be all, oh, he's not telling me everything, but then you're not being vulnerable yourself. That's kind of crazy. You know, you can have that complaint, I feel, when you're being vulnerable and someone's not being that way with you. But if you ain't telling everything, like, how the fuck you gonna get mad at somebody about that same thing? On top of it, if you're taking it slow, you're taking it slow. It's like you're saying you want to go slow, but you really don't. You want him to tell you everything right now. Well, that's not taking it slow. Shouldn't he be able to tell you at his own pace? You know? So that's where she lost me. I was like, girl, bye. We switched to Emmeline's POV. She's in Boston helping them pack. Well, she's not really helping because the girl got one arm. But anyway, they are moving to Colorado. They're moving to Denver. They were going to drive it. And she's like, why would you do that? She's like, get the laptop out and just listen to me and type. I'll set everything up to get your cars out there and we'll fly. She left a message for her parents. They didn't answer. She left a message with her number. So we'll see how that works out. Laura is kind of like, you got to stop blaming yourself for what happened to your sister. You need to start living your own life. And she, of course, is hurt because Jackson has said to her that relationships kind of like they always fail. And then she was talking how distant Jack was and all this type of stuff and how he walked off and now that hurt. So Alistair is coming to work for Jackson's company. Jackson is trying to get some information about Amy and M. So he's been trying to message her he's been trying to email and message through their system, the VAES system, and they all bounce back saying she's no longer available. Laura is the assistant to M, and she's been handling everything because Emma has been gone off for some months. She's been traveling, taking herself, just taking some self-care for herself. So we find out M did have a conversation with her parents. It wasn't much of one because as soon as her parents saw her, they're like 71 and 79. And the first thing they looked was at her hand to see if she was married. They don't care that she has like one of the fastest growing companies in the world. Like, they just don't give a shit. Like, that's it. She's not a lawyer. She can't take over their stuff and continue their legacy. So to her, she's useless. And people like that, that's why they have children, right? They want a legacy to live on, and the legacy of being a lawyer and all that crap is going to die with them. I mean, that's just how they feel. They didn't want children. They wanted a child. So when they had a set of twins, they weren't happy about that shit, right? So off bat, you have parents that didn't fully accept her. Neither one of them. You know what I mean? Because that wasn't what they really wanted. Her and her sister were close at one point, but then she became enemy number one once it became about the parents' approval for Amelia. So they have their back and forth via email. And he asks her what she's doing for her birthday, and he's emailing M at this point. And he's like, "What are we doing for your birthday?" And she's like, "Oh, I would love that." So they continue their back and forth with their emails. She does think that, she is going to have to get a physical location for her business because it's growing so much. She's not going to be able to work from home anymore. She's not looking forward to this, but it is what it is. Laura's going to come on full time. She admits that she saw Jack the other day in town and he was with some beautiful woman. It made her jealous. And he replies, "You don't really know who that was." And she's like, what did she say? Something about Alistair's going to be hooking her up with some guy from work. They're going to have a coffee date and all this type of stuff. So she's planning on maybe going to New York for her birthday. He's like, "Oh, that would be fun. And he didn't get a chance to check out much stuff the last time he was there. He's like, Central Park is supposed to be amazing in autumn. They're still doing the back and forth messaging, and she admits she got a message from Jack. He wants to meet up the next day, and he's like, "Are you going to go meet him?" And she's like, "Yeah." And then she talks to him about the woman that broke his heart a few months ago, and he asks if he can meet her. So this is now Jackson asking Amy. This is so crazy. And she says, "Yeah, we can meet. When do you want to meet?" And he says, "Well, when are you going to meet the guy?" And she says at noon. He says, "Well, then we'll meet at 11:30." So she says, "Well, how will I know it's you?" And he's just like, "Oh, you'll know it's me." So they've just launched some new software and it's going really great. Again, you got to remember, Jackson doesn't like spotlight, so Alistair has been the spokesperson for the project. And she, of course, probably was trying to look and see if she would see him. But, again, he doesn't like any type of internet presence. So, next day, she goes to the bookstore. And I think the girl that works there, her name's Kara. And she's like, "Oh, hey, Emmeline." And she kind of looks at her because the girl doesn't know her actual name. So she's kind of looking like, "Oh, okay." So then the girl also told her, like, "You're early." So clearly this is some type of setup. She takes her over to where there's a bunch of first editions. She opens one up. I think it was like the book Persuasion. And there's a note from Jack, and she finally puts two and two together and says it out loud, Jack Jackson. And he has his company shirt on, and of course it pulls it all together. Thankfully, she wasn't upset. She was actually really happy because it was like, "Oh my gosh, my heart wasn't pulling into two places, it was the same person." And so they leave from there, they kiss, they go back to his place, and they, of course, have this nice fuck session. He eats her pussy, fucks her good. They tell each other how much they love each other. It's just pure magic. A year later, they are in New York. She's gotten a reservation at this like exclusive restaurant. He's like, he found something better. He had it set up with like cherry blossoms and stuff. It was absolutely gorgeous. And he asked her to marry him. She, of course, said yes. And then she's like, "Oh, well, this will make your gift, even nicer." So then she pulls out this Bulgari box and it's got a pregnancy test in it. She's pregnant. So they've been traveling the world and stuff. They were, I think, in Bora Bora when she got pregnant, when she uh, does the time frame in her head. We fast forward 6 months. They've gotten married. We find out that they are pregnant with twins. Both their businesses are booming. Once she has the baby, she wants to take like a year off to just kind of be a full time mom. And then after that, she'll just figure it out. He's sitting at the table doing that questionnaire that she originally sent him a couple years ago at this point, and he's answering them all the questions. They haven't picked out the names yet. I hope they don't name one of those children Amelia because I think it's two girls they're having. I hope they don't use that because I'm like, Amelia seemed like she was a tortured soul, honey. Don't put that on the kid. Some names you just need to leave alone. But they are happy. They, have their flaws, but they accept each other fully and they're just truly happy. And so that's how it ends. That was a really good book. Again, it is a great read. I know I just went through everything of what the book was about, but I'm telling you, you should read it. It's so fun to read the back and forth because I can't tell, even in this video, even though it's over an hour, I can't read the whole book to you. So for you to be able to go back and to read the actual book and to be able to like read their dynamic, it's amazing. So I said it was a new author, just meaning a new author to this channel. I've never done a review for this author, Claudia Burgoa, but I truly enjoyed this book. Let me know what you guys think. Drop down in the comment section below and let me know. If you all have any suggestions, drop those down there as well. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have those available, and the link is going to be available down below in the description section. Make sure you like and subscribe and share. As always, I truly do thank you all for your support and thank you all for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.